This house is exactly 100 years old and abandoned. Behind these walls lie years of accumulated damage and forgotten rooms. Most people would prefer to stay away from such a house. But this family did the opposite. They are completely renovating this structure and transforming it into a modern and livable family home. Now let's watch this incredible transformation process together. They are removing the old roof tiles one by one and carefully stacking them. The wooden part of the house is being completely dismantled and removed. The stone part of the structure will form the basic character of the new house. In this way, the spirit of the old structure is preserved while laying the foundation for a safer and more modern building. Work has begun to establish a solid foundation. The foundation concrete will be poured after the infrastructure pipes are laid. The area where the foundation will be laid is first properly prepared, and gravel is spread on the ground. After all the insulation layers are completed, the foundation concrete will be poured. While the stone walls are preserved, non-load-bearing partitions are demolished to completely open up the interior. In this way, the house is gradually being adapted to the new plan. These beams serve as the main backbone, safely supporting the structure and balancing the load on the upper floors. At this point, the old roof is completely removed. Since there is nothing left on top, the structure is fully open for the first time. The old bricks unearthed during demolition are carefully separated and neatly stacked on pallets. This stage is not just a cleaning job, it marks the beginning of a process where materials from the house's past will be given new life as part of the new structure. At this stage, the interior floor is completely opened up. Soil, rubble, and old fill layers that have accumulated over the years are being cleaned and removed. The beam spacing is determined by calculating the load that the upper floor will bear. This creates a robust framework that will safely support the upper floor. Floor blocks are being placed between the beams. Once this process is complete, the house will begin to truly become a multi-story structure for the first time. After the ground is completely cleaned and the gravel layer is evenly laid, rigid insulation boards are then installed for heat and moisture insulation. Once the insulation layers are complete, a foundation-like concrete pour begins inside. Renovating a 100-year-old house is far more challenging than building a new one. Plans can change repeatedly, and the smallest mistake can jeopardize the entire structure. However, when renovated correctly, it transforms into a unique living space that no ordinary new building can offer. Lightweight concrete blocks were placed between the beams, reinforcement was laid on top, and then concrete is being poured. In older buildings, demolition and construction proceed simultaneously. This is because, while some parts are preserved, others are completely rebuilt. This makes the construction site far more complex than a typical building project. The old bricks come back into play at this stage. They are once again placed within the new walls. They are installing a thin, reinforced concrete beam between the old stone wall and the newly constructed brick wall. This beam connects the two different structures, ensuring even load transfer. It allows the old wall to be safely integrated into the new system. The main supports for the new roof are being erected, and the wooden trusses are being placed one by one on top of the walls. At this point, the roof slope is finalized, and it is planned that all the load will now be carried by these trusses. Once the roof frame is completed, the wooden cladding is applied, and then a waterproof and windproof covering is laid on top. The roof has now transformed into a system that provides protection against external conditions, not only in terms of form, but also technically. The walls at the foundation level are beginning to be protected against water and moisture. At this stage, the interior floor is being insulated. This layer prevents moisture from underneath from reaching the new flooring. At this stage, the window frames are installed, the measurements are checked, and the openings are securely fastened. The interior plan of the house is finalized, and new partition walls are built with bricks to create rooms. Since every subsequent step will proceed based on this plan, the character of the interior is essentially determined at this point. Every new step in a project is dependent on the previous one. Therefore, a small measurement error can turn into major problems in later stages. Roof windows are being installed and secured to perfectly match the waterproofing membrane. The roof covering is being installed, and metal tile panels are being laid in sequence. The panels are secured while maintaining overlapping allowances. These panels are frequently preferred due to their lightweight structure and long lifespan. Would you undertake the renovation of a 100-year-old house? This type of project is challenging, risky, and full of surprises at every turn. But the house that emerges in return becomes much more than just an ordinary structure. The workmanship and details used in older buildings are based on methods rarely employed today, which increases the need for expertise during renovation. Corrections are easy, but renovating while preserving the same feel is much more difficult. Therefore, every successful intervention in such homes is not just a construction job, but also a work of craftsmanship. An underground water reservoir is being installed in the garden, and the excavation area is being prepared with machinery. These types of reservoirs are generally preferred for collecting rainwater or for use in garden irrigation. A wooden veranda is being built on the exterior of the house, with the supporting beams being individually fitted. Especially in renovated homes, these later additions both increase comfort and make the overall form of the structure more balanced. The pace of projects like this constantly changes. Some days progress quickly, while other days are solely dedicated to preparation. But this is a natural part of the process. When the measurements, connections, and infrastructure are done correctly, subsequent tasks proceed much more smoothly. At this stage, a special machine and hose system are used to blow insulation material into the roof and ceiling cavities. This method is preferred because it provides a more homogeneous distribution in the cavities compared to classic panel insulation. It offers a highly effective solution, especially in hard-to-reach areas, for reducing heat loss and covering the entire surface seamlessly. At this stage, channels are cut in the walls for the electrical wiring, and pipes are installed through which the cables will pass. Then, the electrical cables are routed through them. Before the plastering process begins, plastic bags are placed over the windows to prevent them from getting dirty. The plaster is applied to the walls using a machine, and the surfaces are covered in a single pass. Machine plastering allows for faster progress and helps achieve an even thickness at every point on the wall. This results in interior spaces with a smooth and ready surface for finishing touches such as painting and cladding. The first layer of screed is applied to the ground floor, and the surface is roughly leveled. First, insulation is applied to the floor on the upper floor, and layers are laid to prevent heat loss. Then, underfloor heating pipes will be laid throughout the house. And finally, the system will be completely embedded in the floor by covering it with screed. At this stage, satin plaster is applied and the surfaces are made completely smooth. In renovation projects like these, things don't always proceed sequentially. Often, multiple phases are carried out simultaneously. While plastering work continues, tiling begins in other areas. The suspended ceiling is installed at this stage, and the ceiling levels are clearly defined. Lighting and utility lines are planned within this system, and the top surface is neatly covered. The gaps in the old stone wall are being carefully repaired without altering the structure or its appearance. At this stage, a primer is applied to the surfaces to prepare them for painting. Once the primer has dried, the painting process begins, and the spaces start to take on their final appearance. Bathroom walls and other wet areas are being tiled. The shower and toilet areas are being carefully insulated. Now it's time to lay the parquet and other tiles. This is probably the most challenging and enjoyable part. In videos like these, what you're actually watching isn't just the transformation of a house, but the process itself, step by step. Therefore, the process is just as important as the result. The kitchen cabinets and other kitchen appliances have arrived. Now it's time to assemble them. Sometimes you don't just renovate a house, you give it a second chance at life. This house's transformation isn't over yet. You can watch the completed work and the remaining steps of the process in detail on the family who renovated the house on their YouTube channel. The channel links are in the description and pinned comment.